from Craft Me a Card, and I love crafting for the crafter, and that is you. Today, for some reason, I feel happy because I'm happy. Da, 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 da. Anyways, these are a little preview of the cards I will be creating today for you, all using wrapping paper. I hope you come along and you get inspired. All right, let's start. So this card was made using this wrapping paper, which has a lot of strips. This is a very old wrapping paper. It was gifted to me by my mama. So it was very old. She wasn't going to use it anymore. But you can tell how old it is in the color of it and the design, actually. So it's kind of vintagey. So I didn't know really what to do with it. All I knew is that I wanted to use a strip of it. So I went ahead and cut out the many different strips, see which one convinced me, see which one I wanted to use. And I decided that I really like these little lambs. I felt they were very indicative of a baby. So after you cut any piece of wrapping paper for card making, make sure you glue it on to a piece of cardstock because, of course, it's paper. Also, make sure that you smooth out the liquid glue that you put on the cardstock so that it won't create any bubbles or any wrinkling on your wrapping paper. Alrighty, well, looking at these little lambs and seeing that the background is pink, I decided to cut my first layer for my card, and it's going to be this pink. So this pink cardstock is going to be my card base. Okay, now I need my first layer, and I decided to emboss this layer by putting it through this 3D embossing folder by We Are Memory Keepers. And I bought this folder years ago, and it turns out that they're hot now. You know, Sizzix has brought 3D embossing folders back to life. They're alive! And this embossing folder, I really like it because it has like a really cushiony feel to it. It looks like a baby's blanket. So I thought that this was very appropriate for this card. So that's going to be my first layer. With some good old liquid glue, I go ahead and I stick this onto my card base. By adding a little bit of liquid glue to one end of my strip of lambs here, I go ahead and I adhere it right in the middle of the card. I decided to do this card landscape because I could fit more little lambs in it. So I went ahead and I did that. I just snipped off the little lamb that was hanging over and stuck that end with liquid glue as well. And this helps to just give this strip of paper just a little bit of volume because it's not stuck flat on the embossed layer. I wanted to incorporate a different color to this card, so out of this light yellow, I went ahead and I die cut the words "Welcome Little One" and also my corners. With some liquid glue and with the help of my tweezers, I went ahead and I added liquid glue to the back of the words and went ahead and attached it to the card. For the corners, I decided to add some foam adhesive just to pop them out, have them give a little bit of dimension to the card. And here's our first card, nicely finished. And always think, when you have a piece of paper or any design, really, any paper that has designs on it, you don't have to use the whole thing. You could only use certain parts of it, like I did in this case. I'll probably make other variations of this card using the other strips of paper just so they don't go to waste. And I'll just have it, you know, ready for when I need to use them. All right, moving on to the next card, or the next wrapping paper, I should say. I am in love with this wrapping paper. It is awesome. It was bought through a fundraiser for school, and I just love these balloons. And let's start with our first card. For the first card I'm going to show you, I really wanted to use this scenery of these balloons that are just floating in the air, and so many of them. I loved it. And just a little tip, I go ahead and I cut a piece of clear plastic so I could see the image behind it, and I cut the size of my card. And I just go ahead and with my trimmer, I trim it 1/4 of an inch all the way around, smaller than my card base. I do the same process of attaching the wrapping paper onto cardstock with liquid glue. And I also go ahead and I decide to cut out that main pink balloon that is going to be my focal point on this card. I go ahead and I cut it out and I set it aside for a little bit while it dries. Out of some fun holographic pink paper, I cut out the word hi, and I thought it was very appropriate. Hi, you know what I mean? Because it's hi like hello and hi, you know, these balloons are up there high in the air. I cut this word out multiple times and I stick them right on top of each other just to give it some more thickness. I decide to run some ribbon right in the middle of the card and I attach it to the back of the card using some tape. And I grab the hot air balloon and I add some foam adhesive to it and I attach it right where the same image is found on the wrapping paper. So by adding this ribbon right in the middle of it, it helps the eye recognize that the first layer of the hot air balloon that I'm attaching right now is actually separate from that bottom layer. And I also add a little bit of glue. I spread it with my finger because I don't want it to seep through the ribbon. And now I go ahead and I add my hi. So I had this cardstock that was of a sky with clouds, so perfect. I cut my card base out of that cardstock and then I adhere my first layer with my images right on top. And of course, I need corners. I need corners. I need corners. Yes, I do. So I go ahead and I attach it with some foam adhesive. And as always, I like to add some glue just for reinforcement. And I felt these little corners needed some oomph, so I added a little bit of Wink of Stella. Now, Wink of Stella doesn't really show through the camera or through pictures, but if you see it close up, you can see the little sparkle that Wink of Stella does. It's very subtle, it's very pretty. So here is my card. Yoo-hoo! I gotta tell you, I love this paper. I love hot air balloons. So here is the next hot air balloon card. And for this one, how can I explain it? I am going to do the same format of the card, but I'm going to give you 3 different backgrounds because I want to use as many of these balloons as I can. So keep in mind that I'm going to do the same process for all of them, which is grabbing the wrapping paper and sticking it on top of some cardstock using liquid glue and cutting it out. I do want to clarify the size of these cards. It's a little bit smaller. I'm using the A2 size card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And the cards that I usually use are a little larger, and you can see the difference here. And these are A7, I think. They are 5 inches by 6 1/2 inches. This is the ones that I usually use to make my cards. But these are going to be a little smaller, only because I want these balloons to take up most of the space on the card. I thought that that would be fun, just to enhance the greatness of a hot air balloon. Okay, so for my first card, I'm going to go ahead and grab ink, and this is Stormy Sky, and I'm going to ink the background. Now, I tried different colors out to see which one I like the most, but the technique that I'm using is using the white cardstock to be the clouds instead of using a darker cardstock and filling in the clouds with some white ink or something. I'm doing the opposite, and that is filling in the card and leaving white spaces that those are going to be acting like the clouds. You can see here the process that I'm taking. And I found out that these blending brushes were the best way to do this. I tried doing this with the blending tool, but it was coming out too blotchy, and this blending brush was giving me a smoother look for these clouds. And I just keep adding ink until I am content with how it looks, with I have enough white space on the card that makes it look like clouds. And of course, I always bring in once in a while my balloon just to make sure that the clouds are positioned right where I want them. And here I tried the same technique with a different color. This is Broken China Distress Oxide ink. And I add a little bit of speckled egg here and there and everywhere, just to give it a little bit of variation in the color. And here you could see how it came out. I like it very much. I really do. And here they are side by side. But these colors were a little bit too similar to the color of the hot air balloon, so I decided to try the same technique with some Faded Jeans Distress Oxide ink. And that gave it that little contrast that I was looking for in the sky. And also on this piece, I went in with a little bit of speckled egg and I added a little bit of that color, that turquoise color that the balloon has, just to give it a little bit of variation in the color of the clouds. And I really like how that turned out. I like the difference in little color there. Could hardly tell, but it makes a difference when you look at it a little close up. I put my hot air balloon on some foam adhesive, add some glue, and I stick it right in the middle of my card base. Again, adding the word hi to this card front. And here it is. It's how it came out. But me no happy, no. So I added a border. I wasn't happy with the border. I added some glitter to the hi. I added some sequins and it still wasn't doing it for me. So, I changed the color of the border to something a little with more color, of course. And yes, that took care of that issue. Absolutely, the purple border definitely brought the card to life. It gave it more, color, which is what I was looking for. Like it now, I love it. And moving on to the next card, this hot air balloon is the pink one, which I love. So using a little bit of cotton that was in a non-stick first aid pad, I went ahead and I dissected it. I took the cotton out of it and I added a little bit of liquid glue and I put these pieces of cotton on top of the places where the clouds should be. And oh my goodness, and I loved it. I loved the airy feel that it was giving the card. It made it look very cloudy, which is what I was looking for. And you might think, where did you get this cotton? Well, I fell playing volleyball and I used one of these non-stick pads just to protect my owie as I was changing my blouse. But this pad was new. It wasn't contaminated in any way because my ouchie was already dry. It was brand new, but I wasn't going to return it back to the first aid kit. So as I peeled it off, it opened and voila, the cotton just spoke to me. So that's how I came up with the idea of adding this cotton onto this card. And I loved how it came out. It came out very cute. As you can see here, it gives it a lot of dimension and a lot of, that flowy, airy feel that clouds give us. And the next background is using some die cut clouds. I know some of you guys have the cutest metal die cuts of clouds, so let's put them to use, and that is what I am doing here. Just adding them anywhere and everywhere that I feel that it should have some clouds. And I go ahead and I put my hot air balloon right on top of it and it looks cute. Here are the 4 cards using this hot air balloon wrapping paper, which I love. You could see here the dimensions, you could see the colors, you could see the different techniques used on them. Pick your favorite, let me know which one of these you like the best. Alright, so now I am going to go ahead and move on to a different kind of wrapping paper. Another baby card. Yes, I seem to be needing a lot of these lately. So I only have this strip of this paper. And I really like these little animals, but I really like this giraffe. It just really spoke to me. It said baby. So right? To try to cut it out on top of some cardstock, that was close to impossible. It just had too many little grooves that I needed to go around. I couldn't use my X-Acto knife either because it was ripping the paper up. So anyways, I decided to go ahead and stick this image directly onto what was going to be the first layer of my card. Cutting the wrapping paper directly with the scissors was a lot easier, and it glued onto the card base a lot smoother as well. So taking some cute ribbon that I just got from my Hobby Lobby haul, I couldn't wait to use this ribbon, and I'm so glad I got the opportunity to actually use it. Went ahead and I stuck it right in the middle again of the card base. So I couldn't add a 3D effect on the giraffe, so I decided to add a bow to it. Why not? And that gave it a nice little cute finishing touch to the card. Using a hot glue gun, I went ahead and I glued this on right in the middle of the giraffe's neck. Just like that. Using my corner chomper, I go ahead and I punch the corners out just to give them a different look, and I noticed that every time I use this corner chomper, it leaves like a little piece of corner sticking out on it. So this is a little tip for you guys. you could use a file and that'll get rid of those little pointy edges that it sometimes leaves. You could see here the little pointy I'm talking about just by grabbing a nail file and just go ahead and scrape it against it and that'll get rid of it. Alright, adding some liquid glue to the back of it, I go ahead and I stick this on to my card base, which was already covered in the wrapping paper, the baby wrapping paper. I finish it making use of my ABC metal dies, and I cut out the word baby. I put it on some foam adhesive to pop it up, add some glue to it, and I stick it on my card. And that takes care of this card. Super cute! Alright, for my last but not least card, I am going to use this foil embossed wrapping paper that I found. It was on clearance somewhere. I don't remember where. But I fell in love with it. It was very vintagey feel to it, and I love that it was embossed. I always love things that have this kind of different texture to them. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and wrap the piece of cardstock in this pretty wrapping paper. You've seen me do it before, but here it is again. Just go ahead and cut the piece a little larger than your card base. Cut the corners and then add some glue and bring those pieces in, and voila! You have a wrapped card base. For the actual card base, I'm going to go ahead and add some rose gold foil paper, and I'm going to stick this first wrapped layer on top of it. And I decide to go ahead and smooth the glue only so that it doesn't seep through the sides, because foil paper is very is very loud. If you put glue on it, you could see it right away. So by spreading the glue out, you help it not seep out through the sides of your piece. And here you go. Here is my card base. Oh, nice and shiny. I look through my dies and I find this round frame. I also die cut the words "thank you." I stick the words on top of white cardstock and I carefully adhere this to the round frame. And this gives me a nice sentiment, I think. I do want to point out that I did cut different layers of this circle frame just to give it force. And then I just go ahead and pop this up using some foam adhesive and liquid glue. I place it on the top half of the card. And of course I have to finish it off adding some corners. I always like to add the corners using some dimensions, so I always add some foam adhesive to the back of them. And there you have it. There is our card. I think that pictures don't do this card justice. This paper is very pretty, and when you have it in front of you, it's a very different feel. It looks very classy. It's very beautiful. And as always, thank you so very much for joining me. I hope that you found some inspiration. I hope that you create and be happy. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. Like, comment, and when you subscribe, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you could be notified every time that I post new content. I don't know, I really enjoyed working on these cards using wrapping paper. I think I'm a little bit addicted to using wrapping paper. But anyways, thank you so much for joining me, and you know it. See you next time. Bye-bye. This little white thing get on here? Where did you come from? Nope, 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 not happening. Bye, Felicia.